right, we are recording officially. Hi, Rebecca. Thanks for joining us. I know we might have a couple more people, but like I said, this is going to be a small class today. So, all right. So I'm going to try to jump into things. If everyone wouldn't mind muting their end of things, that would be great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And let's see here. So today we are going to be covering some very exciting stuff. I'm going to jump in here so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Let's see, screen share. Vanessa, don't forget to let me know if for some reason the screens lock up again, since it happened last time. Anybody, if you have any questions, just feel free to type them into the chat. There's a chat option at the bottom of the screen. So you can just type them on in there, and everybody, oh, hi, Cami. So if you could just text them in there, and then Vanessa will answer them the best that she can, or she'll hold the questions till the end of class and she'll let me know what the questions are. Okay. All right, let's screen share so we can get going. Week 2, yay. Slideshow. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to close this up so that you can, oops, I forgot to pin myself. I love all the technology that you have to know how to do just to be able to teach a class. Fantastic. So, all right. Can you be a medium? Week 2. Okay, so this is part 1 of a 2 series. So this is called Opening the Door. We're going to cover the differences between 5th and 6th senses. So 5th senses, and then everybody make sure you keep your notes. Don't forget your notebook, your pen, your paper, your water. Okay. And then let's just jump right back into this. Okay. Differences between 5th and 6th senses. What are 5th senses? I think we all know what touch is: taste, hearing, sight, smell, all of those things. Those are that's what we use with our physical body, our hands-on physical body. Let me adjust this just a little bit. There we go. These exist in our 3rd dimensional world. So 5th senses consist of, like I said, what we kind of covered: sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell. Most of us have all of those. And then we have 6 senses. So with our 6 senses, that's kind of what we're all here for, right? 6 senses are what we experience when we are using our unique abilities. Now with 6 senses, it's kind of like with the senses. Some people can have a better sense of taste, a better sense of smell, right? So this is very similar to that. You may have stronger abilities on one end of your 6 senses than you do on the other. So like with our 6 senses, it's just a step up from what our 5th senses are. Unfortunately, 6 senses aren't something that's covered in school. So that's why everybody's here right now. Just like with our 5th senses, some of our 6 senses will be uniquely stronger in some areas than others, depending on your individual strengths. Some may have a stronger ability to see, where some may have a stronger ability to hear with their 6 senses. A lot of people think that being able to see things, being able to hear things, those are the 2 main ones that people seem to dominantly try to focus on, where all of the abilities actually play into our ability to read people, read our environments, and move forward with our 6 senses. Okay, as we go through class today, please write down the 6 senses that you resonate with. So this is kind of important because I'm going to be covering a lot about the 6 senses. We call them the clairs. And I always joke about it. I'm like, not the clairs, because over time, people have classified all of these sensory abilities under a clair. I think they just wanted to give it a name that was fancy and hard to remember. There are more to 6 senses available to us than there are 5th. We, kind of classify everything under the main 5. 6 senses go way beyond that. I will list them, but do know that I'm not a fan of requiring people to remember names, a physical attribute. I believe that it is easier to just call them what they are. I can see, I can hear, I can smell. It's just easier to remember that way. Okay. All right, let's jump into the clairs. I'm going to move myself around a little bit in this. Clairvoyance is the ability to see. It's like Psychic sight, okay? Literally clear sight, the psychic ability or power to acquire information or to see objects, animals, or people despite any distance involved. And in the case of a person or animal, to judge its present condition or emotional state. That is the technical term. I want to be able to put the technical terms in because technically these clairvoyants, like the clairvoyance is a technical term for this ability. A clairvoyant can also pick up on past or future events. It's the ability to see. So sometimes we're given visions, we're given ideas, and a clairvoyant is able to visualize these things. Now, clairvoyance, there's a little bit of difference between what we think clairvoyance is. A lot of people think, I'm going to see a physical person pop up in the room. Okay. Most mediums and psychics do not see a physical person pop up in the room. That takes spirits a lot of energy to do. And so most of the time, it's a sense of kind of like our brain is creating it with our imagination and projecting it. So we're going to cover more about that when we get to the medium side of things. But to go and stick with my little screen that I have here, clairvoyance is often used as a general term encompassing phenomena such as telepathy, second sight, prophetic visions, and dreams. Clairvoyance, dreams is a form of clairvoyance. Dreams are a form of clairvoyance, I should say. Prophetic visions, again, visions are a form of clairvoyance. So if you have experienced, like say you're having a dream and you're visually seeing a loved one that's come through to share messages with you, or maybe even a guide or even an animal, that is a form of clairvoyance. It's something that you want to keep in your confidence log so that you can actually go back and check on the experiences that you have been having. And if you have any of these experiences, write clairvoyance down on your notes for today so that you can say, check, I've got that. Okay. Clairaudience, that is the ability, the sixth sense version of hearing. It's a form of channeling. Clairaudience is usually defined as the perception of messages in thought forms for an entity that exists in another realm. That is, again, the technical term. So I'm going to go through those technical terms, as boring as they may be. The person receiving these messages hears the message in their mind. Most people don't always auditorially hear with their physical ears a message. Sometimes spirit or guides will come through and they will literally shout something at you and you feel like you've heard a word or heard a message. They're not usually long because it's something that they have to spit out in such a strong amount of energy that it takes too much for them to share too much more. That's why if you are actually sitting there working with spirit or guides or, you know, the other side, you want to be able to listen up here. Okay. So hearing exists in our head too. A lot of times it sounds like our own voice, and we'll cover that more too. I will list them, but do know that I am not a fan of requiring people. Apparently, I'm going to reiterate that like 15 times in here. I'm just not a fan of requiring people to remember the clairs. So just write down if you're able to hear. For the budding clairaudience, be sure you only share the messages obtained through clairaudience with people who actually understand the message. Okay. You don't want to kind of go around and just start spouting things off. People look at you funny when you do that. So if you are absolutely sure that you're sitting next to your friend Jan and she is going through something and you receive a message for them, that you only share it with that person, because a lot of these messages are actually of a really personal nature and shouldn't be shared with a whole room full of people. Okay. Unless that room full of people knows that they're being picked on and being told messages specifically, like in a room full of an audience like I've had. Clairaudience is often confused with schizophrenia. People will be like, I'm hearing voices in my head. Some people genuinely have schizophrenia. Others, it gets confused because they're receiving messages from the other side because they're so clairaudient and they have never been told any different. They don't realize that these messages are actually messages coming from the other side. They're not schizophrenia. So there is a fine line there, but we're not all completely crazy, just a little bit. You can also write those in your confidence log, anything that you hear, and basically any messages overall you want to write in your confidence log so that you can go back and read through them and kind of watch for the patterns in the messages. There's almost always a pattern. And that comes from my logical math side of my brain. But it really does seem to, there does seem to be a consistent pattern of messages that come through, because when somebody's trying to communicate with you, they will be repetitive. Okay, clairalience, the ability to smell things that are not there. This is a sixth sensory version, not a fifth sensory version. For example, a lot of times I'll be working with a client and all of a sudden I smell something like lasagna or cookies. And of course, aside of making me hungry, it is actually a message that's coming through for my client. So I'm smelling it. A lot of times smelling and tasting kind of goes hand in hand, just like it does with our physical senses. So a lot of times I'll smell something and all of a sudden I'll kind of taste it too. And that is where that kind of connects with our psychic abilities, and we should share those messages. It is the psychic perception of messages from the other side in the form of smell, the technical term. Excuse me, I had a little bit of a tickle. The sense of smell is directly linked to memories in the brain. So ghosts and entities, spirits, will use this to help them get certain pictures or visual aspects of items and messages across to the individuals that I'm working with, or somebody that you might be working with in the future. They'll use that. They'll give you a sense of smell for something, and all of a sudden, instead of just thinking about cookies, you're thinking about what a wonderful time you had making cookies with your grandma. Okay, that's a great example to show you kind of like, okay, so that message isn't just linking you to cookies, it's linking you to an actual vision of somebody with their grandma. And so you share that message, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, that person is like, oh, my grandma's who I wanted to talk to, and she used to make cookies with me. So that is part of where you have to kind of get past those doubts and fears, kind of like we talked about in the last class. So getting past the doubts to be able to share something like a vision that you're having that is of your grandmother and you cooking or making cookies, it takes strength to be able to share that message. And remember, again, for the early on, reader, apparently I'm stumbling today. For the person who is like kind of just getting into this, you want to make sure that you're very particular on where you share those messages. Clair stems from the 17th century term from French, like French, they clair means clear, and aliens means smell. So you can kind of see where clair was put in front of the extension of a word to make it beyond just clair of seeing or hearing or clear. Aliens mean smell, so that's like the French version of it. So all of these clairs kind of stem from more French terms. So apparently there was a very psychic French person at some point that got real creative. Clairgustance, tasting. Kind of touched on that a little bit in the last slide. The spiritual ability corresponds most similarly with the physical sense of taste. So again, if you are sitting with somebody else and you taste a spaghetti sauce, kind of like what that guy's doing in the image, what does it bring to you? What does that message actually mean? Are you literally supposed to share, I taste spaghetti sauce? Because sometimes that's actually the message that is meant to come through, because the person sitting in front of you goes, oh, spaghetti sauce. They will usually come through with their favorite food. They love to come through with something that is going to not just trigger a memory for you, but maybe trigger a memory for the person that you're sitting with. We call those the client or the sitter. Okay. Claircognizance. Okay, so that is the psychic sense of knowing. It's like downloading information. It's the ability to receive psychic messages from the other side as a form of knowingness. How many of you have had a time where you just suddenly knew something? I mean, a lot of times that's our guides working with us. Our guides really love to give us downloads. But either way, whether it comes from a guide, whether it comes just kind of from the universal consciousness. Some people call that Akashic records. There's like a bunch of different names for it. In this class, I'll just call it universal consciousness because it makes life easier. Without hearing or seeing the ghost, you still receive information from them by just knowing what they are sending through as messages without knowing how or why you got the information. This is how many, many, many psychics work. Okay. Claircognizance is a big, big, big one. It's like all of a sudden you're standing next to somebody and you're empathically picking up on the fact that even though they're smiling, they're really not happy and something's wrong, and you just feel like this urge to hug them. That's a sense of claircognizance. It's a knowing that you need to hug somebody, or knowing that something's off. A lot of us have children, anybody that does, a lot of times, or family members. A lot of times we can kind of tell when something's off with a family member. That's claircognizance. It's kind of a knowing. It's a form of it. There's a few forms that kind of feed into that one, but claircognizance is one of those. So if you have ever been sitting there, or even in dreams, all of a sudden you kind of download something and have a knowing of it, then that is claircognizance. All right, let's move this over just a little bit. Clairsentience. This is also a very empathic clair, a sensation, a sixth sense. Empaths always have this. It's a sense of feeling. Again, that's why I was saying in the last slide that claircognizance isn't the only where you kind of get these impressions, sometimes called impressional mediumship, and very similar to claircognizance. I personally deem this ability to be more on the empathic or psychic level of the structure of abilities. Again, empaths are all about clairsentience. They feel. They can walk into a room and they can tell if something's off. Even if you're going to a party and all of a sudden you go from one mood to a totally different mood. Sometimes you need to understand that is that ability to feel other people in the room. And when you're picking up on those and the energy of those feelings, it can actually make you change your own mood. So knowing the mood that you're in before you go into, especially if you're highly empathic, before you go into a situation where there's people, is invaluable. It's one of those recognition tools. We talked about recognition before, but like I'm going to repeat that probably 20 times also throughout this class. This ability relies on the distinct feeling that the medium or psychic or empath has when giving a message. Okay, so when you're going through this, you kind of get an impression that somebody is not right, and you kind of go up to them and you're like, I feel like, and that is one of the things to put in your notes. I feel like. That is very, very important, because that will feed into a lot of the ways that I teach. When you're approaching somebody with a message, it's easier and gentler to approach them with, I feel like something's off. Are you okay? Versus going up to somebody and being more along the lines of, I can tell that something's wrong with you. I mean, which one would you take easier? So I feel like something is off with you. Can I help you? Most of us, anybody that's on the structure of abilities, is going to feel like they have to help people a lot. It's kind of our drive. Okay, so clairsentience. It often involves the medium being overcome by an unrelenting sense of what needs to be said, but the message doesn't come into the mind in a specific way. So sometimes we have to do a little interpretation. Why? Because we're interpreting energy. We're receiving an energetic signal, because you're empathic, you're psychic, you're receiving an impression, you're receiving a signal. Everything is energy. And so we're reading that energy because of our abilities. So when you're reading that energy, that is where sometimes it can come into your mind as a very clear, decisive, specific message. And sometimes it just comes in as a feeling, a gut instinct. Okay. I'm so sorry for the cough. Okay. So again, it is more of a gut reaction, a clear and undeniable feeling that the medium must speak about certain issues, share a particular name, or go to a specific person when giving messages to a group. Clairsentience is kind of I use that skill a lot mixed with clear, like there's 500 clairs. Sorry, I'm spacing all the clairs. With clairvoyance, because when I'm in a group setting, I will see somebody standing there, like a spirit that's standing by a person, and then I have this overwhelming gut instinct that that's the person I need to talk to, and that this is the message I need to share. Okay. Clairsentience is a very common way for mediums to work. This is not abnormal. We usually get these huge heightened intuitive drives to communicate messages. Okay. If you asked them how they receive their messages from spirit, they won't be able to define the process for you more than saying it's a knowing. And so claircognizance, clairsentience, they go hand in hand. Okay, I want everybody to stop for a second and really pay attention to this slide. I want you to understand that before you go any further, know that once you open the door, the psychic door, and that includes learning everything that we're going to be going through, you can't unlearn knowledge, okay, any more than you can unlearn your ABCs. Who can, I mean, you can't forget your ABCs. So you can't, once you learn that 1 + 1 is 2, 1 + 1 is 2. You can't unlearn that. So know that you'll begin to experience the world from a different perspective, both during and after this course and in between. So as we go through and I teach you the things that I know about psychic and mediumship and empathic abilities, it is unlearnable, or not unlearnable, but that is the wrong term. It is, you are unable to unlearn it. So it leads me to my next section, spiritual awakening. Okay. When we go through our awakening, which is what a lot of you have, most of you, I'm assuming you've probably already gone through this, but for those of you who are going through this, it piques a lot of interest in learning. You want to learn, learn, learn. You become like a human sponge for this stuff. So as I go through this, you may want to make some notes on what resonates with you too. Okay, what is a spiritual awakening? Some call it nirvana, they call it enlightenment, they call it bliss. A spiritual awakening begins the moment a person can step back and awake to their life with a new sense of being in this world. Spiritual awakenings can be somewhat shocking to the system, at least at first. Okay, they often cause us to kind of tangle up and wrestle with the questions like, who am I? Why am I here? Who's had that experience? It's like, why am I going through this? Why do I suddenly have this urge to actually check out my sixth senses? Why do I suddenly have this urge to help people more than I ever felt like? I mean, it's very intriguing. You suddenly have a desire to go out and soak up, like I said, as much knowledge as you can about everything. And then the world just gets beautiful. It's amazing. Okay, I'm going to stop my little tangent and go into the rest of this. However, it sometimes can come along with certain elements of wonder and excitement when we find ourselves suddenly feeling very much more alive. I always tell my students, I'm like, the crazy thing is even when you're going through a spiritual awakening, food tastes better, colors are brighter. It's fantastic. You feel more though. So where there's a yin, there's a yang. So taste may change. People in your life may change. Okay. So a spiritual awakening can be triggered by anything from completely mundane to complex life altering events. So some people go through spiritual awakening because they went through a massive health issue, or suddenly they just woke up one day and out of the blue, they decided that they don't feel like life is going the direction it should be going. I need change. Few common causes for spiritual awakenings include life-changing events like divorce, losing your job, moving, car accidents trigger this a lot. Another thing is like near-death experiences. I'm sure it'll cover this and it'll end up being repeated, but it kind of, how do I put this? It helps you want to open that spiritual door. People around you who are very spiritually inclined, they will actually sometimes pique your interest enough to where you're like, this is working for this person. I can see the change that's going on with this person. Now I want this change. So something as simple as that, just, seeing by example, can actually help you jump into that spiritual change. Partners, like I put on here, soulmates, a spiritually enlightened friend, a lot of those can trigger this drive for spiritual awakening. Okay, number 3, for most, spiritual awakenings are triggered by major life changes or traumas such as life-threatening illnesses, car accidents, divorces, war, pandemics, quarter life or midlife crises, mental health crises such as clinical depression or anxiety, or even near-death experiences. A lot of people have had near-death experiences, more than usually talk about it. How many of you have been hospitalized and suddenly woke up going, wow, I feel different? Sometimes near-death experiences can not only either give us, some people go as far as like, I saw the light, or I floated above a hospital room, things like that. Or some people just simply have an accident, wake up and feel the change. Okay. Basically anything that encourages or forces you to look at your life from a more spiritual perspective can set you on a path towards awakening. Okay. So awakening is just kind of a broad term. It just means that your soul's craving something different and you want to see things different. Okay. I'm going to grab some water really quick. Everybody that has water, swig's big. All right. Signs of your spiritual awakening: experiencing more deja vu or synchronicities. How many of you have had the deja vu moments where you're like, this has happened before. I don't know what's going on. I know that this has happened before. It means that things are in alignment. It means you're actually going on the right path. Deja vu it's interesting when you're in the midst of it, but I always tell people that's kind of a sign. Okay. It's a sign that you're on the right path. Synchronicities, the same thing, like all of a sudden, or coincidences. Same thing with synchronicities. Okay. We run into a lot of those when we're moving forward on our path correctly. Okay. Number 2, feeling more disconnected or detached from things or people that you used to enjoy. So spiritual awakenings come with the good and they can come with the bad too. So there's a yin and yang to everything. When you're going through a spiritual awakening, you start realizing that there's more to life. There's more happiness. There's brighter things. And then you realize the people around you may not fit anymore. Okay. They may just not kind of slip into the groove that you let them slip into before, because before you may have been at a lower vibration. Now you're at a higher vibration, because as you go through a spiritual awakening, you start ascending. Okay. Number 3, you start reevaluating things like religion, relationships, or your job. Some go through a reevaluation of just one process, like just relationships or just your job. Some people do the whole kit and caboodle. They just go, I need to change everything, So when you're going through that, just remember, don't jump, don't go too crazy. Just make sure that you take baby steps. Okay. Finding yourself wanting to shift your relationships and friendships. Again, you'll start seeing that people that may have been in more superficial, I can talk, friendship may not suit you anymore. A lot of people that go through their spiritual awakening start realizing that they have friends that literally just suck them dry of energy. They don't know why, but when they're around this person, they love them, they care about them, they want them to be happy also. But when they leave after being around them for a while, they just feel exhausted. Well, when you start going through spiritual awakening, you start recognizing, again, recognition, you start recognizing more and more about what is good for you, what isn't good for you, what are positive, enlightening friendships, what are toxic friendships. And, you start evaluating them and seeing if that's something that still fits into your life. Number 5, dreams become more colorful and vivid. When you're going through your spiritual awakening, you are ascending. Thus, your energy level is raising. You're starting to kind of vibe more with everything. You're picking up on more. You're seeing more of the signs. Dreams at night, especially for those of you that are dreamers, your dreams will become more colorful and more vivid. It's like watching a really brightly colored Disney movie instead of just kind of like sustaining through like an average dream. So if for anybody that's ever seen that Robin Williams movie, What Dreams May Come, there's parts where it's very colorful and very vivid. And that is the closest that I can say to accuracy when it comes to even how your dreams will shift. Okay. Number 6, feeling spirituality is becoming a more important part of your life. So on the religion side, I'm just going to touch on that for a second. You can still be very religious and be very spiritual. You can have both. There is not a rule book that says you cannot be religiously inclined and spiritually inclined. If religion is a strong part of your life, I don't tell people to give that up because I personally haven't. I was raised Catholic and then became a Christian convert. And I'm still very Christian. I just am a very spiritual Christian now. So that, both of those things are still very important to me. Some people just want completely away from religion. I know religion is very structured, more of a man-made version of things. So, but a lot of people don't realize Buddhism, Hinduism, the 15 different kinds of Christianity that there are, they are written the way that they are so that you have something to click with, and, I tell people, I'm like, I still go to church too. I mean, I like the messages that come across. So just because you're going through a spiritual awakening does not mean that you necessarily give up religion. You just find a higher version of it and you start seeing more about what life is about, and things become more vivid and you feel more, you sense more. Okay. I'm going to move my little thing over here again. Signs of your spiritual awakening continued: dreams and intuition. Number 7, you'll begin to notice a heightened level of intuition. Your intuition you may start noticing things like, wow, I can't believe I knew that was going to happen first. Or you're intuitively picking up on things and then you're watching them play out, hence the reason for your confidence log. And like I said, you don't have to write it in a notebook. You can actually just type it into your little notes on your phone. A lot of my students just open up a little notebook on their phone so they can keep notes as they go along. So number 8, sensing when people are being manipulative or inauthentic. That kind of goes, again, hand in hand with starting to notice when there's healthy people in your life and when they are not healthy people in your life. I do not tell people to cut people out of their lives. I feel like everyone that you bring into your life, bring into your reality is there for a reason. Whether they're teaching you something, you're learning different ways to be or not to be. And you'll just start, just be aware of the fact that you do, how do I put this? You're going to have stronger and stronger urges to fix people. You don't want to exhaust your energy on fixing everybody. Remember, there should be a balance of you fixing someone and somebody fixing you if you're going to have a relationship like that. Okay. Number 9, starting to feel a stronger urge to help people. That is inevitable. Empaths, psychics, dreamers, intuitives, mediums, we all have that urge. Why? Because that's why we're given these abilities. We're given abilities so that we can sense things, feel things, and eventually help people with them, whether that's your children, whether that's yourself. A lot of people don't pay attention to the fact that they're drawn to help everybody, but they forget about themselves. So don't forget to help yourself. Remember, when we're talking about the vehicle, your vehicle is your body, and your body needs to be maintained too. So you have to take care of yourself if you're going to help take care of other people. Okay. Realizing that everyone is on their own unique path, including you. It means that as your urge to help people grows, you also have to take into consideration that people are on their own path and they also are learning their lessons. So if you're going to help them realize the lesson and what they're going through. Some of my clients feel like feel a huge need to financially bail people out all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, your finances, your situation. So decide if that's something that suits you, but make sure that you're not draining yourself to try to help other people. Because sometimes, like, we want to financially support our children, and sometimes that's counterproductive, feeding the need instead of letting them learn the lesson. Okay. So there's a balance, see which one works best for you. Number 11, suddenly your teachers find you. According to Kaiser, during an awakening, your spiritual teachers may appear everywhere with perfect timing to help you. Teachers can be a friend that just comes in and literally says something to you and you go, whoa, that was the simplest statement, and yet you have no idea what that just taught me. Okay, so even your friends can be your teachers. It doesn't have to be someone like me. Though even as you go along, people that find people like me, there's a reason for that too. So having teachers appear, it can be you're being taught through friends, you're being taught through experiences. But remember to take the lesson out of the experience or take the lesson away from the messages that friends are sharing with you so that you are finding it. You know, the more we learn our lessons, the easier our transition is in the end. Okay, signs of your spiritual awakening continued. Okay. Senses are heightened and you may have more bodily experiences. And I don't mean like having to go to the bathroom more. When I say bodily experiences, I mean you may start to sense your physical things that are going on with yourself too. So we're not just picking up on six sensory things as you go through a spiritual awakening, you start picking up on everything. Like I know that more psychic and some mediums deal with, they sense pain more strongly. They sense stomach issues. They have all sorts of stuff. They feel things more intensely because they're past the point of just sleeping through life. Okay. There are some benefits to being a sleeper, and there's a benefit to being empathic, intuitive, psychic, all of those things. Number 13, more frequent sleep disturbances and may experience feelings of being alone in the world. Okay, so for those of you that are going through awakening, I cannot tell you how often guides will try to mess with you between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. It's so irritating. The best thing that I have learned through the years of this is to, again, have a notebook ready or have your phone ready, and whatever message is coming through, if you can get it out of your head, it helps you to go back to sleep. Also, being able to keep something that's distracting your mind while you're trying to fall asleep. Like I turn on thunderstorm noise at night because it makes my conscious mind kind of attached to that instead of everything else that's going on around me, so that the rest of me can fall asleep. Okay. Let's see. A little sip of water. Number 14, experiencing more fatigue and or brain fog. How many of you have had that? I'm sure several of you are either in the midst of going through your spiritual awakening or have been through it already. When you went through that, how many of you had fatigue or felt like you had brain fog? And we write it off for 15 different reasons. It's because as you're kind of going through that awakening, your brain is going, we're connecting to more things than we're used to connecting to. And so because your midbrain's jumping on board more than it used to, it's kind of like a rewiring. Okay. So it can make you feel more tired. It can make you kind of get foggy at times. All right. Number 15, increased empathy, and you display more compassion. Again, you're going to have that drive to want to help people. You're going to feel like you want to hug everybody. Sometimes you're going to feel like you don't want to be around anybody. Sometimes when we're going through our spiritual awakening, people become too much and we hide. We kind of go into cave mode. And then we kind of go through these little growth spurts. So things rewire. All of a sudden we feel more comfortable working with people. When I was going through the evolution of my abilities, kind of going through the transformations, like my guides would kind of do these downloads, and all of a sudden I'd be like, oh my gosh, I can do something new. Look at my new pocket trick. Okay. That's part of an awakening, part of ascension. It's exhausting. And sometimes you want to, pull back from people until you become comfortable with it. So just know that that is not abnormal to go through these waves where you want to pull back in. And then other times you feel like you need to connect with the world. I call it an extroverted introvert. Okay. Number 16, your outlook on the world feels different, and you may have found a new level of curiosity towards life, people, spirituality, etc. Things become more exciting. Trees smell better. Colors are more vibrant. Food tastes better or worse, depending on what it is. And you just start experiencing things on a different level. Your vibration is higher, so you're tuning into more. Because everything is based on energy, the higher your frequency is, the higher your energy level is, the more that you're going to be able to tune in and access things that will change your perception on the world. It's a beautiful thing. It can be a little overwhelming, but it's a fantastic experience. Track that experience so that you can kind of go back and reflect on it. Okay, going through your unique awakening. In the beginning of your spiritual journey, you may start to question everything you once knew. We've kind of covered a lot of that, so I did want to touch back on it just so that you know it. When you start feeling like you're going through these questioning phases, like, oh my gosh, did I make a decision on this? Oh my gosh, what was this? What was that? That's normal. It's your soul's way of kind of reprocessing things that maybe you haven't solved yet, maybe you haven't taken the lesson away from. When you start to take those lessons away from things, you start realizing this is why I went through X experience, right? X, Y, and Z. I went through those experiences because, and then you take the lesson out of it. Then the rest of it just becomes your past. Okay. So you begin to clear certain things out of your life, habits, relationships, old belief systems, and invite new, more enriching things in. I know that after I went through my spiritual awakening, it was more like I felt like, honestly, I felt like a human crow. I was so attracted to anything that sparkled, anything that just made me happy, so you'll start noticing that maybe something that smells good, you're like, that brings me so much happiness. It's the simplest little thing, but it brings me happiness. My gardenia bloomed the other day. It was the first time it bloomed since I've had it. The joy it has brought me for days has made me feel like an absolute geek because it's the simplest little thing, but because my senses are heightened, I can feel the energy off the plant and I can feel the energy off the flower, and it makes me feel good. Okay, you may feel like something is missing, but you haven't quite figured it out yet. This phase can be confusing. So sometimes when you're going through your spiritual awakening, you will feel like something's just missing because you haven't filled that gap yet, right? I went through every hobby on the planet. I thought that I was going to do beadwork. I thought that I was going to be a seamstress. I made blankets for a while. I have owned 13 different kinds of stores. I owned a cupcake shop, a computer business. I mean, I tried everything that I could possibly do to fill that gap in a quote unquote normal way. What people perceived as normal, because I was a little bit afraid of judgment. I think that when you're going through this experience, we're all a little bit afraid of judgment if we are honest with ourselves. So when you're going through it and you feel like something's missing, it's because you haven't really locked in totally yet. Okay, once you start filling in that need, that missing item a lot of times becomes the need to help people, and it kind of fills that cup. Okay, I do want to go into, like I said, where there's a yin, there's a yang. There's a really positive side of things. There's a little bit of a dark side. We call that during a spiritual awakening, it's called the dark night of the soul. It's a common term for it. It's kind of like the second stage. It's like all of a sudden, first is curiosity and you're wanting to know everything. Second stage of spiritual awakening is kind of what sounds like a very rough patch. This is when your soul is recalibrating, stripping away all the aspects of the old portions of what was holding you back before. Okay, it can be challenging, but what goes down must go up. That's the good news. Forcing you to make real change. It really does, because when you're stripping those things away, you start seeing the things that were holding you back. You see the things that you were doing that weren't enhancing your life. So you start stripping these things away, and it can be a little bit of a challenge. So just be aware that that is part of this process. Then, once you've made it through your dark night of the soul, you're ready to begin creating your new and improved awake life. Everything becomes like a breath of fresh air. I mean, there's always, there's trials and tribulations with everything. Otherwise, we wouldn't be getting the lessons out of it. But once you've gone through the spiritual awakening and you're at the wake phase, all of a sudden you start seeing the cup as half full more often than you see the cup half empty. You begin to branching out, trying different hobbies, exercise, religions, relationships, self-improvement, all the things that kind of maybe you were restricted on or you self-restricted before, because this is the kind of stuff that helps you figure out what's good for your soul, what's good for you, what brings you happiness, what brings that light in. Okay. You'll begin to not only recognize, but honor and embody the true nature through your gifts, skills, and talents. once you realize that sixth senses are things that should have probably been taught to us when we were like 5, starting at that point, you realize that there is so much more to the world and so much more that you can learn. There's brightness, there's happiness, and we need to embrace those things through our skills. Okay. It's also why we have the drive to help other people do that, because we feel like they should be going through the same experience we are. Have you ever heard of a born again Christian? It's kind of like that. After you when you're in the awakening process, you've gone through the dark night of the soul and you've kind of gone through your awakening, you feel like everybody should know what this is. So at that point, I do tell people you may want to be, share with the close friends, share with the people that you trust. Make sure that you're not overwhelming people while you're going through your awakening, because they'll find it if they haven't already. The awakening process is all about releasing the remaining structures, beliefs, or parts of your old truth that are keeping you from your new truth. Discovering your new truth is part of the awakening process, trying to find the new you. At this point, you've gotten to know your soul, you've figured out a lifestyle that works for you, but there may still be people or habits that hold you back. Again, it's when we start kind of stripping things away. This is where you will select who to hold on to and who to release so you can fully step into your power. I still have people in my life that drain me. Why do I have them? Because their hearts are the size of China and I love them. Sometimes it's family, sometimes it's friends, sometimes you never know. And they also go through these phases too. So I don't necessarily recommend dropping people just because they may be in a dark night of the soul moment themselves. Maybe they need you to be their teacher that steps in. Okay. All right. Awareness and service, your unique awakening continued. Finally, this is where you begin to recognize your own energy and divinity in every moment. As you begin to embrace and expand through your new awakened life. You will find that you are drawn to help others in various forms of service. This is like the service section. Okay, that's why I said awareness and service, which can begin to bring you great happiness and contentment. When you're at this point, you've kind of calmed yourself down. You've wrapped your mind around your awakening. You've got more of a grasp on things. That's when you really want to go and say, hey, maybe this is the point where I start helping others, because it does help your soul. Helps you feel good. All right. So week 2 finale. If you're going through a spiritual awakening, remember to be gentle with yourself and trust the unfolding. All spiritual awakenings occur to guide us back into balance with our true self. Pay attention to your inner guide, that little voice up here, and intuitive nudges, push, as they're happening to you to harmonize and remove what no longer is authentic in your life. When we go through spiritual awakening, we're removing the things that don't fit anymore. What doesn't fit? The things that don't drive us to the light. Okay. When we're going through these things, people ask me all the time, they're like, what is the reason for life? What is, what's the goal? And I'm like, well, that's a broad question, isn't it? Everybody's reasons behind life are a little bit different. We're all here to learn our own unique lessons. However, our goals seem to be the same. I run people through this huge test. Okay, this might actually be kind of fun. Let's do this. This is kind of spontaneous, but let's do this. I want everybody to think about somebody that they love. Okay, just picture the person that you have so much love for that you feel like you want to help them with anything you can. Okay, children are a good example. Friends, family members. Okay, and write that person's name down real quick. I'm gonna grab some water. And then I want you to write down the numbers 1 through 5. Some of you have worked with me before, so you know what this is. It's like cheating, but go with it anyways. So write down 1 through 5. Now, and I want you to picture that person in your head. Okay, and I want you to think of the very first, and I mean as fast as you can, the first 5 things that you want for that person in their life. Whether it's love, happiness, success. I'm just giving you a little cheat here. So in case you can't think of something, trust, adventure, excitement. And there's a whole laundry list of things that you could go through, but I want you to take a minute and write down as the first 5 things that pop into your head. Okay. I'm going to click out of screen share in the meantime while you're doing that. Oh, all right. There we go. Okay, I'm going to give everybody about another 30 seconds because it's supposed to be very fast. So you want to write those 5 things down very fast. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I want you to look at your list now. This little experiment that we're doing is called a mirror experiment. Okay. So those 5 things that you wrote down for the person that you love the most, that you're drawn to help fix the most, I want you to now turn around and look at that list for yourself. And that's the response that you're supposed to have. What we want for the people that we love the most is generally what we are searching for in our own lives. It's something that we're missing. It's something, or that we don't have enough of, we feel an absence of, or a lack thereof. Okay. So I want you to think about that list as you're going through your spiritual awakening and you're doing some soul searching. If you, like I said, if you haven't already been through this, and if you have been through your awakening, this is kind of a gentle reminder at one of those nudges that we were talking about, to really kind of look at that list and go, wow, am I missing these things in my life? Why am I missing them? How can I help myself? Remember, if your car's not running, you can't give somebody else a ride. Okay. So you've got to do the self-care to be able to help other people. And I don't know if anybody, there's a hands up option at the bottom of this somewhere, I think in the chat or something. Who here already feels like they need to help people? They're super driven to help people. Yes. So that's what I'm talking about. So most of you have probably been through your awakening or somewhere in the process. Yeah, I mean, how many of you have already gone through the dark, what we call the dark night of the soul? I did, for sure. And so, and that creates a lot of transition. Anybody that if you have already been through the spiritual awakening, I want you to reflect back on your process that you went through to see really what kind of evolutions you made in your life to advance yourself, to really grow from those experiences. And if there's anything still lingering, something still hanging on, take a good look at that experience that feels like it's still causing you an emotional reaction. We call them triggers. If it's still triggering you, there's a reason for it. You have not taken the lesson away from it. So don't let those things hold you back. Reevaluate it, look at your situation, find out what's triggering you, what's the emotional trigger, and try to do a little homework on what the lesson is that came from the situation that's still affecting you. Because you want to start to process these things. The deeper we go into these classes, they're going to get more and more intense on really focusing on emotions and focusing on, getting past what you are feeling to really be able to connect with other people's emotions. So it's good stuff to kind of work through, sort through before, trying to take on other people's interesting lives. Okay. So, Vanessa, did we have any questions?
We did not.
All right. Well, that's the easiest thing I've ever had to answer. Okay, well then, does anybody have any questions at this point? Because this would be the question time. Just put your hand up if you have a question or need a little more information on something. We still have a few more minutes, so if anybody's interested. Otherwise, there's a lot of studying. Everything is recorded, so I will be I'll be downloading and converting all of this stuff later, and it'll be uploaded to the same site. So if you're looking to go into the recording, you want to go to the membership. Okay, your membership link is where you sign in and you can go straight to the classes and the recordings. Okay, I'm going to try to have it up by this evening. It does take a little bit of elbow work, so It's not just download and upload. Yes, Lori.
So the membership link, where do I find that at? Did you send us an email for it, or?
I posted it on, are you guys all signed into the Facebook group?
Oh,
Yes.
no, I'm not.
Okay, Lori, so sign into the
called?
Facebook group. Can you be a medium private group?
Okay.
You're on Facebook, so I'll go in and see if I can't maybe invite you if you don't find it first. So you have to be either invited or you have to be accepted in. So if you log in there, I link, every class is linked there, the link for the Zoom meeting. And
I didn't know the group. Okay.
Well, see, you learn something new every day, right?
I know, right?
Voila.
Could you also check on me too?
Who's talking to me?
Sorry.
Rebecca?
I just wanted to know if you could check in on me too with the Facebook thing.
Yes, in fact, yes, I will do that. And I'm going to make a little note right now. So I will go in there and Lori, Rebecca. Okay, so I'll make sure that you're both on there, because I'm posting things there. And honestly, the Facebook group is a very good place for all of you to be able to like actually ask each other questions.
Yeah.
You know, and if you post a question, if you think of something later, you can always post it on the Facebook group and I'll go in there and I do check on it. So, and I can answer questions for you.
Cool.
Go ahead, Lori.
Can you talk a little bit about kind of like what happened to me, you know, where it was so scary, because some people may have had that experience where it was just so frightening for them, that like how to deal with that type of thing.
So when you're going through a spiritual awakening, it can be very intense. Lori, you have really strong abilities, so that does not surprise me that yours is more intense. For those of you that have more intense abilities, sometimes our spiritual awakening and our dark night of the soul can be a lot scarier than for others. And that's one of the reasons in the first class that I went through the fears and doubts, because I really wanted people to know how to handle those situations, because that is a very common concern for people to be going through scary experiences. Sometimes when you're going through this, your dreams will shift and all of a sudden you have these, some people will have nightmares, scary nightmares. And I was one of those people. And I figured out later on, of course, my guides, once I actually listened to them, I realized that that was a lesson. Okay. They will sometimes give you scary experiences or scary dreams or things like that because they're forcing you to face a fear. Okay, as we're going through the spiritual awakening, we have to learn how to face fears. We have to learn how to advance ourselves. We have to grow to protect ourselves too, because, you know, that's one of the reasons protection is so important. That's why I taught that right in the first class, clearing yourself, world's fastest meditation, and doing your energy ball clearing. Remember, blowing up the room with energy. Those are so important to practice every day. I mean, even if you know, feel off just a little bit, world's fastest meditation. Why? Because you're practicing how to clear yourself. You're keeping their energy at a higher vibration. So as you're going through a spiritual awakening, your experiences may not be as intense, but for those people that have gone through scary experiences or are going through scary experiences, be armed with tools, knowing that you have the ability to clear it, you have the ability to clear yourself, so you're protected. And not only that, but mediums, like psychics and mediums, they don't realize that most of them are very naturally protected already because you already have a higher vibration than most people. Unfortunately, that's also why spirits tend to be drawn to you. That's why people that don't have the higher vibrations tend to be drawn to you, because you're like the little light bulb in the room and everybody's like the moth that's like, you know, whether they're here or on the other side, they want to be involved in your energy. That's why you have to be cautious about who's draining your energy, learn how to protect your energy. Sometimes when I'm in a situation, I'm going to show this to you guys really quick. When I'm in a situation where I'm around, say, a toxic person, and I can start to feel that energy leaving me, I'm like, oh. They call them psychic vampires. I just think that's a little bit of an intense name too, because most people don't even know they're doing it. It's not generally intentional. You'll have some people that know that they're doing it. You have to be really careful with those, but really quick, simple tricks and tips to be able to block someone from doing that. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to show you so you can kind of go like this. I mean, how many of you will stand by somebody and all of a sudden you have the feeling you need to cross your arms, right? Unfortunately, with body language, that can be it could be a negative thing. So the people that are around you, you're not necessarily trying to hurt them. You're not trying to hurt their feelings. So a simpler step that you can do is, instead of just, here, I'm going to try to show you a little bit better. Sorry, my camera only goes so far, is to kind of take your hands and go like this and maybe turn to the side. Because if you do that, then a lot of times you're still doing the same thing. You're just not putting a big waving flag in front of them that I don't want your energy. I don't want you to take my energy. So take a step back, that can help. Turn to the side, that can help. Just cupping.
You taught me that, but I forgot about it.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? I remember now that you taught me that. Okay. Thank you.
So helpful, especially in, like I said, in situations where you are the only one that can actually recognize that you're being drained.
Yeah, and you get so overwhelmed and you just want to leave, especially a group of people. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes, it really helps in large groups of people. So people that are going, again, through the spiritual awakening, gosh, I sound like a broken record, sorry, but it's the term. So when you're going through that, large groups of people, even medium-sized or small groups of people, can be overwhelming. And you don't want to just completely hide in a cave the whole time you're going through that, because then you're not getting the lessons out of it. There is growth in experiencing uncomfortable situations. Okay. And why? Because you'll learn how to protect yourself. Same thing with the scary dreams or the scary experiences that you're going through. Sometimes our guides are actually the cause of the scary dreams, because they're teaching you that you have to learn how to protect yourself, but they're doing it in a protected environment. So like I'll give you an example. When I was younger, 5 years old, I went through a series of dreams where I felt like I was sword fighting literally the ultimate evil in the planet. At 5 years old, you should not even know what that feels like. Okay. So, but I found out later on that the reason that I was sword fighting, I was fighting and fighting and fighting. And I was like, why can't I win? I'd wake up absolutely exhausted because I couldn't fix this, right? I finally had a dream. The night that it stopped was the night that I had a dream that I was sword fighting, and then I stopped. I literally stopped because I realized, oh, wait, I don't have to fight this because I'm putting all my energy into this. What am I doing? I don't have to fight this. I already won. As soon as I did that, the guy disappeared. I didn't have to fight anything anymore. And I learned a very valuable lesson at 5 years old, which I, by the way, have lectured my guides for, because that was way not cool at that age. So, but nevertheless, it taught me that I was very protected already. I didn't have to fight these things, because if you fight them, you're putting energy into them. But if you use your tools to clear yourself, not only are you healing yourself while you do that, but you're keeping your energy at a higher vibration. You're keeping your space at a higher vibration. Those fears and doubts don't have to exist as much. And when they do pop in, that's why we recognize them as flags at that point. Why is this flag coming in? What am I supposed to recognize? Okay. So I'm obviously going on a little bit of a tangent, but I hope that did answer your question. It's sometimes sharing experiences are a lesson in their own. So anybody else have any questions? No? All right. Okay, so everybody, let's check on week 3 here. I'm going to just jump into something for a second. So week 3 is, we're going to continue the opening the door part 2. Okay, we're going to go over way more tools, way more senses, how the brain works with that. I'm trying to see if there's anything extra that you need. So we're going to do this is going to be fun. We are going to have some very fun visualizations and exercises. So make sure that you are in a place where you can relax and be a little bit comfortable for the things that we're going to go through. Okay. So we'll thank you everybody for coming today. I appreciate it. And hopefully you learned, and I will see you next week.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good weekend.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. See if I can figure out how to do. There we go.
You're still recording.
I know. That's when I was like, and there's the button I need. All right, perfect. Now I can stop the recording.